My name is Ikram. I'm the Deputy Senior District Judge of England and Wales, but I do other things as well. I'm a visiting professor at the University of West London, and within the judiciary I also have the responsibility of being the Deputy Lead on Diversity and Community Relations. As the Deputy Senior District Judge, I sit on various types of cases, in particular extradition hearings. I also deal with the more sensitive and difficult cases across the country. And I also provide leadership to 300 other judges in my jurisdiction. The core values of the profession, well, I suppose the most important thing is, our ethical standards. And we're very jealous and proud of doing the right thing, of truly believing in justice and making justice happen, believing in fairness. And that's something I've always believed in, this issue of fairness. It means more to me than just the decisions I make, because a lot of work I do is around access and fairness in terms of who becomes a judge. So this word of fairness, yeah, it's central to the court hearing, but it's also central to us as a profession as well. Ever since I've been practicing as a lawyer, I've always wanted a just outcome for my clients. I've always wanted to make sure that I did my bit, whatever hat I was wearing, to ensure justice took place. And I suppose the real satisfaction of what I'm doing now is the fact that I've got an opportunity to be part of that process and making sure I'm doing my bit to ensure that there's a fair and just outcome. My whole career, ever since I've been at school, has been a zigzag. I had absolutely no plan to become a lawyer, let alone a judge. Dad always wanted me to be a doctor. Never quite happened that way. Ended up in Dundee studying engineering. I kind of realised that wasn't for me. I ended up at Wolverhampton Polytechnic, but at the end of that I got a lower second class honours, which didn't help, and I wish I'd worked a bit harder. In fact, I wish I'd worked harder when I did my A-levels. I couldn't afford to do the solicitors or barristers exams. But until 1990, you could pay £300 and just sit the exam. You didn't have to do a course, you didn't have to take a year out. Interestingly, they're going back to that now because both the bar and the solicitors profession are looking at issues of access. And in some roundabout ways, going back to where we were 30 years ago. So I became a barrister. In those days, you didn't get paid to do your pupillage, which is your 1-year training, which you have to do before you become a barrister. So I ended up in sales, and I was selling mobile phones when they were the size of suitcases, and they cost £5,000–6,000 each, and phone calls used to cost £6 a minute. I didn't see any future in mobile phones. I didn't think that was an industry going anywhere. But I ended up as a magistrate's clerk, giving advice to magistrates in the courtroom. And that was my first job in the law. I did that for a couple of years, and I moved quite fast. And I then thought, I'm listening to the arguments. I think I want to make the arguments. So I became an assistant in a law firm, in a solicitor's firm. And I joined that firm, became a partner in that law firm, became head of department in that law firm, and then told them I was off, and became a full-time judge in 2009. I was given my first position in Camberwell, which was fascinating because it was a really diverse area. Having an understanding of the communities you serve, I think, is at the heart of doing your job. And we're not going to understand everything about everyone. That's just not realistic. But we've all got a different perspective, and that different perspective, when you bring it together in the collective, is what makes the institution strong. Today I hear cases, what you might call the day job, but when I'm not visible in the courtroom, I'm doing a lot of work, not only managing and supporting my team of judges, but also hopefully making a small contribution to the discussion that's going on diversity and inclusion. People with legal problems come from every single background you can think of. And a diverse legal profession is absolutely critical to understanding the challenges that people face. So diversity means access into the legal profession. Also, critically, and this is really important, about progression in the legal profession. There's no point saying, yeah, I've got a load of trainees if they don't become the partners, because it's those partners which maybe one day will become judges. I mean, there's a knock-on effect. We're looking at everything. We're looking at people who have disability, people who have different sexual orientations, gender, age. You know, the way a younger judge thinks is different than the way an older judge thinks. Now, the law's the same. And one would have thought, in fact, the outcome would be the same. Well, I'm going to put my self-learning in two categories, right? The first one is the number of times they've said no and the number of rejections I've had. Because rejection is difficult. And not only is rejection difficult, it also sometimes limits what you yourself will do. And you create your own limits. And if I had created the sort of limits some might have expected for a guy who'd been to Wolverhampton Poly and got a 2-2, if I'd set myself the limits, I bet you I wouldn't be here now. In terms of self-development, I have to tell you, I'm still doing courses now. I'm doing a course online on diversity and inclusion. I write for 2 leading textbooks, probably the 2 big legal textbooks lawyers use. And even that is a self-learning and a self-development, because when you're writing about new areas of law when they come in, the first thing you're doing is teaching yourself what it means and what's coming in. So it never stops. Self-development never stops when you're a lawyer or a judge. My 3 career pieces of wisdom would be: study hard, get the best grades. Don't create limits and ceilings in relation to where you can get to. And pick yourself up when they say no. I don't think there's any substitute to getting the best grades, going to the best universities, and getting the best qualifications you can. Whatever they say, opening those doors is easier. That doesn't mean, though, that if you don't, you're a failure or you're not going to make it. Because I don't have what most people would call a superb education. The second is, don't set any limits. There are people out there who, in their own minds, have plotted their life for success and the top job very early in their careers. And I think some of us set our own limits. So my second one is, don't limit your potential. And the third one is, never give up. Failure is part of it. Failure is part of the journey. When I applied to become a full-time judge, first time round, they said no. And they said I wasn't good enough. And so I had to apply again. I had to pick myself up, the confidence to reapply. And I got it second time round. And since then, I'm now the Deputy Senior District Judge for the country.